let's start with Tuesday and what happened with the assembled 800 or so of the nation's top military advisors, both from the Army and from the other branches as well. And what was going on with that? Because there was a lot of alarm when Defense Secretary, and it is Defense Secretary, not Secretary of War. I think I might have said this to you before, although the administration has said that it wants to change that name, and I've talked about that before. That has to go through Congress. So it is still legally the Department of Defense. Anyway, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called a meeting very, very quickly for all these top advisors and top military officials to come in from all over the world from their assignments to the Marine base at Quantico, Virginia, on, as I say, very short notice. I think it was 4 days, pulling them off ships, pulling them from their missions, and so on, along with their top enlisted advisors. And many people were extremely concerned about that because it coincided with what looked like and turned out to be a government shutdown. What were they up to? Now, before I go into how that played out, I want to make the point that I don't think we make enough in the United States, and that's that the job of the government, of any government, before it does anything else, the job is to keep the nation safe, safe from invasion, safe from attack. It is to keep the people safe. Now, in the United States, our our land base has largely been safe since World War II. So people tend to forget that the military actually has a job. It's not just part of some international chess game, that in fact it has a minute by minute job of keeping the United States safe. So pulling all these people to one specific place and making it public in that manner was really dangerous and highly, I mean, unprecedented. Nobody does that, or nobody did it until Secretary Hegseth did it last week. So people were justifiably very concerned about whether there was going to be a new policy or what was going to happen at that event. And the first day when he first called everyone together, there was a lot of rumors circling around, and what were they going to do, and was it going to be like, other authoritarian regimes where they kill everybody, or was it going to be a loyalty oath, or was it going to be whatever? Well, news started to drop pretty quickly that this was going to be a talk about the warrior ethos. And I'll be frank, I did not think that that was correct, that there had to be something bigger than that. And in fact, what we saw was on Tuesday was the Secretary of Defense haranguing professionals who are highly trained and incredibly qualified and true professionals, with the idea that the military has to be reworked along some kind of hyper white Christian nationality in order to be truly lethal. And that was deeply problematic, not only because every possible study will tell you the opposite is true, but also because Hegseth was in the military fairly briefly, rose to the rank of a major, but uh, his job before he came to the head of the Pentagon was he was a weekend host on the Fox News channel. So he looked the part of a military advisor to President Donald Trump, but he doesn't have the experience. He is not a career military person, and all the things that one could say about him. So watching him lecture these professionals was deeply embarrassingly painful for those of us who understand the difference between those two things. Now, there was a couple ways that mattered. First of all, is that lots of people talk about whether the military will hold if Trump tries to weaponize them. And I think if you watched that speech, what you saw was professionals. And what really jumped out to me is that um, I talk a lot about the history of the military, which is different adjacent, but different than the history of the United States. And a lot of people make the mistake of taking a look at them and assuming that they are partisan. And I have never served in the military, and I could be entirely wrong in what I'm about to observe. But what I saw was something that reminded me a lot of myself. That is, when I look at the world, I look at the larger stream of American history. There are presidents I like, there are presidents I dislike, there are presidents I support, there are presidents I don't support. But to me, they are all transient. That is, they're going to be here, they're going to go away, and my loyalty is to the much larger stream of American history. And I get kind of salty when people accuse me of being a shill either for the Republicans or the Democrats. People accuse me on both sides because while I certainly like and dislike different things, I just don't even think that way. And that's what I saw in that military. Those are leaders who are loyal to the institution of the US military and its role in defending the United States of America. That's really different than partisanship. Even if they vote for a Republican or vote for a Democrat, it's a different way of looking at things. And it's important to remember that in the past, when you have seen military figures supporting Donald Trump, they have not been the senior people. They have been much more junior people. And the military frowns on that. That's absolutely not acceptable among the military. So what I saw was a number of extremely qualified people looking at somebody who is not going to be there forever and really recognizing how outlandish what he was saying was. Okay, that matters because the next person to speak was Donald Trump, who spoke for 70 minutes, give or take, and you can find the transcripts online. Um, but he spoke in a way that was deeply, deeply, deeply unhinged. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute because I want to work in another question that people asked about the military. And you've said, is Donald Trump going to do what he suggested in that speech, which was use the military against American citizens? And the answer to that is I don't know. First of all, I don't know. I never know what's going to happen in the future, but I want to change the direction of your vision a little bit and recognize, as I keep saying, all of the branches of the military are covered by the Posse Comitatus Act. That's the 1878 law that says that the military